Thank you very much for organizing this event. I'm very happy to have the chance to share the research, the result of my research project on taxation of digital platform. So let me start by saying that economists have spent quite a bit of time thinking about the implication for market outcomes of taxes that levy the same amount on all products competing in the market. However, in practice, some taxes are asymmetric, meaning that different products in the same market are levied different amounts. We can find example of these tax schedules in the context of environmental taxes, but also in the technology sector. We know that special taxes on big tech platforms are on the policy agenda. What is especially interesting of these asymmetric taxes is that the equilibrium responses of firms in the market are going to affect relative prices, and this can have a larger effect on competition dynamics in the industry. So the context of my research is a tax levied exclusively on ride-sharing firms, so not on traditional taxes. And this is a particularly interesting setting because this allows me to analyze what are the implications of the tax for the competition between regulated incumbents, such as taxis and innovative entering platforms. These taxes have been considered also in other settings, like the hotel industry, where traditional hotels compete with platforms such as Airbnb, and are a tool that is currently on the policy agenda to address competition in this market. There is also an open question regarding how platforms pass through taxes. So what are the incentives behind the equilibrium pass-through rates in online peer-to-peer marketplaces? And finally, taxes are also a traditional tool used by policymakers when addressing negative externalities. So in this study, one potential negative externality exerted by ride-sharing companies is congestion, and so I'm also going to look at the implication of the tax on ride-sharing for congestion. So to fix ideas, the research question that I'm going to address is what are the pass-through and the effects on market outcomes of asymmetric taxes. I'm going to first study the change in ride-sharing prices and the tax pass-through rate. Then I'm going to look at the equilibrium number of pickups in the market, so how many taxi and ride-sharing pickups, how this change after the tax. I'm going to distinguish for ride-sharing both single and share pickups, where by share I mean those instances in which passenger make separate bookings and then eventually share the ride. And finally, I'm going to move to the analysis of congestion. Okay, so this is the tax schedule, the tax change that I'm going to consider. In particular, I'm going to focus on the city of Chicago, which on January 6, 2020, implemented a tax schedule which replaced the 72-cent flat tax that was levied on ride-sharing before, with a tax schedule that is heterogeneous across types of ride based on the geographic endpoints of the ride, and based on whether the trip is single or shared. As you can see, there was a particularly large increase in the tax for trips that happen within the downtown surcharge zone, within the downtown area of Chicago. This is related to the fact that the tax was motivated by a desire to reduce congestion, and arguably Chicago downtown was the area of the city with higher congestion. The tax then for these trips was $3 per ride, whereas for a non-downtown ride, single rides, it was $1.25. The same for share rides downtown. And finally, for rides happening entirely outside the downtown area, and if the ride was shared, the tax was actually decreased by a very small amount, 7 cents. Before getting into the data, let me just give you an overview of what could happen in the market after the tax. So let's suppose that on the left-hand side, we have this stylized framework with demand and supply for ride sharing, where the initial equilibrium is at point A. Then, as suggested by traditional one-sided tax incidence analysis, the tax may shift the demand for ride sharing inward, and the equilibrium would be point B, where the driver receives a lower price, but the passenger pays a higher price as compared to the pre-tax equilibrium. Now, this would be the final equilibrium in a traditional one-sided tax incidence analysis. However, what is special of platform is that there are network effects. And so one possibility is that the reduction in demand leads to lower earnings for drivers, which in turn may lead to a shift in supply as well. So this network effect may lead to higher pass-through, and so higher prices post-equilibrium. In the post-tax equilibrium. What is interesting of my setting is that the tax was also only levied on ride-sharing platforms, so it did not affect taxis, which arguably compete with ride-sharing for the demand. So the tax may lead to a shift to the right in the demand for taxi. Prices for taxis are regulated. So we could see an increase in the equilibrium number of taxi pickups. So the data that I'm going to use are trip-level data in which I have any kind of information you can imagine on the ride, the geographic endpoints of the ride, the time of the date, as well miles, duration, and importantly for my analysis, the community area in which the trip started and ended. You can think of community areas as neighborhoods. I combine this with daily information on weather in Chicago, which I use as controls in my analysis. I'm going to focus on peak times, which are between trips happening between 6 a.m. and 10 p.m., which are the times of the day affected by the tax. And I'm going to construct a data set which is at the route hour of the day level. So in general, I could simply compare the change in prices or in the other dependent variable that I consider before and after the implementation of the tax. However, the challenge here is that the tax was implemented on January 6, 2020, which is the first Monday after a period of holidays where typically activity starts to increase. And so part of the increase in price that I would see may be driven by this seasonal variation rather than the tax itself. Given that I don't have a long sample to kind of like take care of this seasonality, what I do is using a difference in different framework where I construct a control group based on the year before the implementation of the tax. So the treatment group includes 6 weeks before and 7 weeks after the beginning of the tax, and I call this sample 1920. And then I compare this with sample 1819, which is basically a period of the same length, so 6 weeks before and 7 weeks after hypothetical tax implementation date, which is the first Monday after the same period of holiday the year before, so January 7, 2019. And in this way, I can use this specification to a simple difference in different design to deduct the seasonal variation from the tax effect. So the main coefficient of interest here is going to be beta 2. And of course, like since the difference in difference design relies on the parallel trend assumption, I'm also gonna do a similar specification, which in the form of an event study to test the parallel trend assumption and also look at the dynamic adjustment specifically of prices. So this is the first set of results regarding what happened to downtown rides. You can see that there was a large increase in prices. This increase in prices allows me to estimate also the pass-through, which is above 100%, and is particularly high and consistent with the hypothesis of two-sidedness of the market playing a big role here. We see increase in prices both for single and share rides. When looking at rides outside downtown, it's interesting that the pattern for single rides is similar, whereas we see a different pattern for share rides outside downtown. Remember, for this type of rides, the tax was actually decreased, so that explains why you see a decrease in price right after, in the first week after the implementation of the tax. But then, due to the increase in the reduction in supply, there was an increase in price also for these rides. I then look at what happened to equilibrium pickups, and I find that the increase in price for ride sharing led to a reduction in the equilibrium number of pickups, as you can see in column 1, 2, and 4. However, what is interesting is that in column 3, you see that even if there was an increase in the price of share rides downtown, the number of pickups for this type of rides went up. And this is driven by the fact that there was also a large increase in the price of single rides. And so there is a part of the riders switching from single to shared rides. Part of this demand also went into taxis, as in fact in column 5 you see that downtown there was an increase in the equilibrium number of taxi pickups. As promised, I also look at congestion. I segment trips, the city in different parts, different types of rides, so rides entirely between downtown or downtown versus outside downtown. But in general, the main takeaway of this set of analysis is that we don't see a huge decrease in congestion as measured by average speed of vehicles or delay rate, which is how long it takes to drive a mile relative to free flow traffic. The only reduction in congestion that we see are happening within the downtown zone, but they are not very big in magnitude, especially relative to the price increase. In a separate project, in a follow-up project, I actually consider also explore the heterogeneity in shifting patterns, so in the increasing price across different neighborhoods of the city, and this may be informative regarding the distributional cost of this kind of policies. And in particular, as you can see, the increasing price was very different across different trips starting in different neighborhoods of Chicago. I try to kind of like study what might be driving such heterogeneity, and I find that this is largely correlated with access to public transportation. So let me conclude. What I find is in this project is that taxing digital platform may lead to very large increase in prices since the two-sidedness of the market affect pass-through rates. If the policymakers hope to address competition by helping regulated incumbents gaining demand, that may not be that effective. We only see modest growth in demand for taxis. And the policy also had a limited impact on congestion. On top of that, there are distributional costs. There might be distributional costs associated to tax. In my case, I find that the tax fell primarily on a neighborhood with worse access to alternative transportation options, and this tends to be correlated with where areas in which minority resides. This is all I have. Thank you.
Excellent. So thank you very much for this very interesting presentation. So my question is, can you control also for the taxis, the traditional taxis, if they have apps, these kind of digital tools, because that might have an impact for the slow uptake in their use?
Yeah, that's a good point. So I checked in back then when at the time of the analysis they were doing primarily by scanning, so it wasn't an issue. Of course, now it would be different if I were to replicate the study, but at the time of the analysis, apps were not widely used.
So you mentioned there's like regulated price in the taxi market, so that's like price floor. So it's like it's like the least price that they can charge, right?
That's kind of like fixed. They have by law they have some sort of pricing based on the mile of the trip and or the time that you spend inside the car.
So they could also like change that, right? Like I mean,
but the city would need to do that, yes. But like it was constant over the period of my analysis.
Do you think that's like better than putting more tax?
I mean, the easier way, the easier margin to adjust for a taxi would be the number of medallions, which is kind of like the permits to operate, the number of permits to operate. So that's what affects primarily supply and equilibrium in the market on the taxi side.
Thank you.